Welcome to the Northeast Kingdom Voice. I'm your host, Scott Wheeler. Today's guests are here today to talk about the speech disorder called Apraxia. I'd like to welcome Nicole Matten and Tiffany McCormick to the show. You're here today to talk about Apraxia, and to tell you the truth is, until you started posting on Facebook, because you're really trying to get the message out, I had never heard of it before. And as I was telling you beforehand, 2 of my kids have gone through speech therapy for all their lives because they had a hearing loss. But so Apraxia, what is it?
To be honest, I personally had not heard of it either until she was diagnosed with it in January. We started speech therapy through the hospital in August, and they couldn't give an official diagnosis until they turned 3. Mm-hmm. So they tested her after she turned 3, and so in January they diagnosed her with Apraxia, and it's a speech processing disorder.
Right. And what about Jordan? What's her story?
I've never heard of Apraxia before this, and when we had a speech therapist come to the house, and she kept throwing out Apraxia, and I'm like, what are you talking about? So I went online, I looked it up, and got reading on it, and then she turned 3, so she phased out of that speech therapist, so we had to go to the hospital, and after a couple months, the speech therapist was like, there's no doubt about it, it's Apraxia, and there's signs.
Right.
They can't talk, or you can't understand what they're trying to say. A lot of frequent tantrums. Sometimes they have a type of tic where like they can't quite get it out, and they're trying their hardest and they just can't, so they get a tic. And that was a big one for her, was a tic. It's starting to go away with a lot of speech therapy.
Right. Well, that's that's, as I said beforehand, is we've been through this with our sons who are now 30, and they still have a bit of a tic occasionally. Yeah. And I was just wondering, maybe, is this a new diagnosis?
It is fairly new, and it's considered rare, even though there are thousands diagnosed with it, but compared to the typical speech delay, it is. But it is a fairly new diagnosis, and I had never heard of it, and a lot of people that I've spoken to have not. And like you said, I've flooded Facebook trying to get some awareness out there, and that's why we're actually doing the walk.
And when is the walk?
September 10th at Lake Region High School. And it's going to be a small walk. It's not, it's going to be from like 10 to noon. We do have a clown that's coming, and we have hopefully some princesses that will be wandering about, and we're hoping to get a good crowd. We need 50 registered participants, and we have probably close to, I'd say, between 25 and 30 so far.
And what do you mean you need?
In order for, what it is there's an organization called Kasana, and they are the ones that are like the main organization out of Pennsylvania. And for it to be called a successful walk, we need to have 50 registered participants.
I would suspect between all your work, this show, and then you should be able to get that many.
We're hoping to. I know we've had quite a few people say, yes, we will register. However, we have not seen everybody register yet, and I know some people wait until the last minute. Technically, they have until August 14th to register in order to get their T-shirt, right. But you can register right up until the day.
Now, how does one register for this?
You can either get a printout from myself or Nicole that we can have people fill out and mail in, or they can go online. Online's really easy. I've done it for several people. I have a link to the walk, and you just click on it, you fill it out, and
Do you know the link right offhand?
I don't, but I can certainly send that to you.
Okay. So, do you want, either one of you want to talk a little more about the apraxia and what people maybe, I know you're not doctors, you're not speech people, but what should somebody look for if they're, what did you see?
She, for instance, for us, for Hudson, she was a very quiet baby, and she also did not give kisses right away. There was a lot of things that I thought she just didn't want to give us kisses, or it's not just in speaking, but forming. It's a motor, planning disorder, so it's moving those muscles, and so in speech, she has since learned how to give kisses and how to blow bubbles and things like that. No, you don't do that. No has never been a problem. That seems to have come very easily, and she uses it quite well. But definitely lack of speaking. And I always joke and say she's going to be great at charades because she's so good at acting out what she wants in order to get what it is either she wants or needs.
So it's not a developmental.
No, she understands pretty much whatever anybody is saying to her. It's the response back to people that is the hardship. And it was a lot easier the younger she was in stores or places when people would say hi to her and she could not respond to them. It was easier to just say, well, she's little, she didn't talk yet, or now that she's getting older, and you say, well, she has apraxia, I'm sorry that she can't respond to you. They either will say, oh, what's that? Or they'll just kind of look at you like you have 5 heads and walk off.
Gets a little awkward.
Yeah, it definitely does.
And when did you start having concerns?
Well, when she was born, she was really tiny, and she just didn't grow. So we had early integration come in and work with her, and I'm like, she's 9 months old and she's not even babbling. And so they just kind of waited it out to see maybe she's just a little slow. And at a year, they really got to okay, she's not saying mama, she's not saying dada. There's something. So then they got the speech therapist in and worked with her and evaluated her. But it was the more intensive, going 3 days a week to the hospital, that got her so people were like, wow, we can start to actually understand some of what she's saying.
Yeah, it definitely is a big commitment. I work some crazy hours in order to be home with her during the week and be able to get her to all her appointments. I'm not really sure how people do it otherwise, either being a stay-at-home parent or working, evenings and weekends, because they do require many appointments, and we've had to go to different specialists to rule out other things. So luckily in our case, my cousin Crystal is a speech-language pathologist at the hospital.
She's awesome.
And so she really encouraged, me to...
And I know the department has a good head. I don't know if you know Kate.
Yeah.
Kate. She's the head of the department.
Yeah, she's been really supportive, along with our speech language pathologist, who she sees as Gabby. Yes, and they've been very supportive with trying to get her on an IEP for preschool and get extra help there as well.
Jordan, has anybody told you look like your sisters?
You'll be shy.
I think another is the sensory, people talking to them, and I don't know if it's because they can't necessarily respond, but so far those that I've have been around. It's only been a handful of apraxia children, and they all seem to have the same response that Hudson does, where they bury themselves into you or turn away from whoever's speaking to them.
So what's the long-term prognosis for people with apraxia?
With enough intervention, they should be able to communicate. We're hoping, by second grade or so, that they should be able to communicate, and the average person may not necessarily notice, but they'll always have that struggle of they have to think about how to place their mouth and their tongue, while like the rest of us, we take it for granted. We just speak.
Oh, so the long term, it's looks pretty good.
With intervention, yes. Without intervention, though, I actually happen to know a high school student that has recently been diagnosed with it in the last handful of years, and he does a lot of grunting and a few yeses and nos, but does not just readily communicate. And it should be that, they should be able to communicate easily the older they get. And I know, like, for myself, they introduced at Speech Proloquo, which is a program on an iPad, so that they can type out a full sentence. Now with her, she's too young to type out the actual letters to form a word, so they have pictures, and it'll say, like, it'll say, I want blue cat, or for instance.
I think that's, we often yearn for the days of old, but I think this is the one thing good about modern times is I think we know so much more than they used to, and that's how come I think with this early intervention, I think that's really key.
It is, and they tell you that. And the Kasana website, I have to say, has been a huge tool for me, resource center, online. And I found a few groups through Facebook that is dedicated to apraxia. And one of them, a page that I found was called Katie's Crew, which is actually where we got our apraxia shirts that we all have. And it's a mom that has been dealing with this for many years, and she is very knowledgeable and supportive, but also understands the struggles that having had a child, or she does have a child who has apraxia, and she's been, I find,
Helpful.
Yeah, very supportive, helpful, great resource.
So, is it hereditary at all, or?
From what I've learned, it's not.
Yeah, that they say it's not. However, it's still so new that.
So what is it caused?
Sure.
Do you know what it's caused by?
Sometimes it's just neurological disorder that's through something fluky during pregnancy, and other times they really have no clue. According to what they've said for our situation, is just bad luck, I guess, in a way.
Right. And you both have other children, and did any of them?
Mine, no. In fact, they were speaking early and haven't stopped.
Right.
My son had speech because he had so many ear infections that he was deaf, so he couldn't speak. So he was getting older and he wasn't speaking, but it was just because he couldn't hear. So once he got the tubes, he was fine.
I know that is what I believe my boys actually, because they had a doctor who just wouldn't listen, and then finally once they got the tubes, it was like, they got in the car and they said, "What's that?" They said, "That's the motor run." And they had, but we sometimes as parents, as you probably both know, sometimes with all the great doctors out there, sometimes you've got to kind of, you've got to be the strongest advocate because you're the ones
Absolutely.
around your kids all the time. And I think that's because I know that was what happened to us. Did you ever have, with their hearing, did you ever have to be strong advocates that no, there is something wrong, or did?
Yeah, she went through numerous hearing tests. And they're like, well, it's coming back fine. I was like, I know, because she can hear, but she can't speak, so you need to do something, figure something else out.
Yeah, we
Well,
went
let's
to
try another hearing test. No.
Yeah.
we did some hearing up here, and then we did hearing tests down in Burlington, and everything was okay. I haven't had the battle that Nicole has experienced. We have been pretty, knock on wood, pretty smooth sailing with. We've had Gabby, our speech language pathologist, and as soon as we got in there, she has been great at testing her and recommending to go for her hearing tests, and she's helped me find other resources, and she's been receptive for. I've given her some resources I've found through Facebook and through the Kasana website.
Now, do you know what the Kasana website address is?
I may. I have to look on my phone.
Because I think that's sounds like a good resource.
Very good.
The website, it's apraxia-kids.org.
Can you spell out? Yeah.
Yep. APRAXIA-KIDS.org.
Okay.
And actually, if you just Google Kasana,
Right.
it'll also pull it up. And they have an enormous amount of information, resources. That's actually how I found out about the walk. They have the walk itself. What the money goes towards is helping children obtain iPads and programs like Proloquo, so that they can converse with everyone.
Okay. That's it. Does Jordan like her time with her speech pathologist?
Yes. Anytime we go to leave the house, we go see Crystal now, because she's actually able, now that she's had all the extensive with
Right.
Crystal, that she can say a sentence, which is amazing. We go see Crystal now. No, not today. And then we have a tantrum tomorrow.
So that's
Anytime.
good that they have that kind of relationship.
I believe if they didn't have a bond, we wouldn't have gotten anywhere. It was touch and go there for a while. She wanted nothing to do with it. She'd get such high anxiety that she just wouldn't sit in the chair. She'd want to sit in my lap and just shut down, have pretty much a nervous breakdown. And then once she got comfortable, we sailed right along.
So there must be a certain frustration level for them, just,
Oh, yeah.
especially since they almost probably feel like they're locked in.
That's exactly how it seems like she feels like she can't express what she wants, so she's locked in. She can't do anything. So we have lots and lots of tantrums, even though the speeches come a long ways. There's a lot of times where it's like, I can't understand what you're trying to tell me, and we have a huge meltdown. But it's funny, her sisters, Brooklyn and Alexandra, can understand her. I'm like, I can't understand you. And then Brooklyn will come along and she said this, or Alexandra will come and say, Mom, she said this. So I'm like, sweet, I have translators.
But it's funny about siblings, how they can sometimes do that.
Yeah, it's awesome. And they're also, like, connected because they know she has
Right.
a special need, so they're very protective of her. So if someone was to mess with her, they would put them in their place, and they'll talk for her, which isn't always a good thing, but they help her.
And what about Hudson? How does she like her time with her therapist?
We're still hit or miss. Some days she does absolutely wonderful. Other days, not so much. Today was a little bit more of a stubborn day. She didn't want to cooperate. She loves Gabby, but doesn't always want to participate in.
I think they kind of get sick of it. If it's a few days in a week, they kind of get sick of it.
See,
and just
I
kinda-
think with Hudson too, she is very nervous, and the first day is always a little bit rougher. And then by the second day, it's like, oh, okay, we're in a groove of thing. Change seems to be a little more difficult. I think anxiety and sensory is heightened. And that could simply be because they have a hard time talking and expressing themselves. And I know, like Nicole said, we definitely have frustrations and tantrums, and she's trying so hard to explain things to me, and I don't get it. And the older she gets and the more she wants to converse and knows what she's trying to say, I think it ends up more of a tantrum.
Now, did you guys know each other before this, or did you bump into each other because of this?
We have been
we've known each
attached
other
for a long time.
Yeah.
Oh, so what's the odds of both of you then, since you knew each other beforehand? Does that mean this isn't as rare as maybe at one time they thought it was?
My personal opinion is that I think that it's maybe considered rare, but there's still thousands of kids that have this battle, and I'm sure there's some that go undetected.
Have you found others in this area?
There's been one other in this local area that recently signed up to do the walk. That her son has not been officially diagnosed because they're doing the testing, but the speech-language pathologist does believe that it is apraxia. And there's someone there's actually only ever been one walk in the state of Vermont before, and now this year there's two. There's one in central Vermont towards White River that a mom down there has a child with apraxia.
Yeah. I guess Hudson says, that's enough.
Yeah, probably.
Jordan's next.
Yeah. They're saying, all right, show's over. Well, they're pretty close. We only have about 5 more minutes left, so...
They did pretty good.
Yeah. Why do you think it's really important for people to understand about apraxia?
I don't think there's enough known about it. Like I said, I did not even hear about it until she was in speech for several months, actually. And I'm sure that there are other kids out there that have not been diagnosed, and it's a diagnosis that not many know about, so it's hard to relate or have sympathy, empathy towards these children.
Right.
And as they're getting older and going to go into school, that's a whole new ball game.
Right. How are people, when they realize that something's...
I find that sometimes people treat her as if she does not understand, like that
Like she's
it's a
slow.
cognitive delay when it's not. And before they find out, sometimes they just think that, what's wrong with her? How come she's not speaking? She's 3, she should be.
Well, yeah, and I actually see that's funny you say that, because this is totally different, but I know a person who had throat cancer, an older fella, and he had to have his voice box taken out, and he has to speak with a electronic thing. But you watch people, it's funny how people communicate with him. Suddenly, even though he's totally with it, because he can't speak the same way as everybody else, they end up hollering at him when it has nothing to do with his hearing. But it's just, I don't think people mean to do it.
No.
It's just something that people end up doing.
Right.
The comment that bugs me with her is, oh wow, she's actually really smart. Yeah, she is. She just has a motor planning. It's not to do with not being intelligent or being very intelligent. It's
I agree.
motor.
I think that's one of
And I think that's where the education what you're doing actually helps, because whether the person has apraxia or some other speech disorder, that I think people need to understand. Well, yeah, it might be a speech disorder, but it doesn't encompass your whole being.
Exactly. And again, knowledge is power, and I think that just getting that information out, and I'm sure people get sick of hearing about apraxia in my local circle, but I'm trying to get the awareness out, and we just
our team, bigger than the local circle.
Our team for Hudson just put on a tea party for a fundraiser to go towards our walk, and a lot of people that came were like, so what exactly is apraxia? What are we here for, other than the enjoyment of the fun? So I was excited that other people are starting to learn about apraxia.
And it's like a lot of things, until it to anything, until it affects you or a family member.
Oh, of course.
Kind
of oblivious to it.
Yeah, and so again, when is the walk?
September 10th, and it's at Lake Region Union High School. It'll be right on the track. Juddy's Septic has donated a porta potty, so we'll be covered there, and we have a clown that's coming, and it'll be from about 10 to noon.
Right. And so, even though you're taking pre-registrations, you can
register on that day.
Right.
By August 14th, if you register, you get a t-shirt for the Apraxia Walk. After that, you're not guaranteed a t-shirt, but you're absolutely welcome to register and still walk. And we would really like to get at least 50 participants. Right now we have 25, maybe 30.
Right.
And we're also looking for business sponsors.
Business sponsors. We really would love. We have a couple, but we need, in order to get on the back of the t-shirt, it has to be $500, and we would absolutely love to have
at least one sponsor
on the back of the t-shirt.
And you haven't had any luck at that yet?
No. We were kind of hoping that, the Relay for Life gets all kinds. We would like one at least.
So do you have a number or two? Like, is there a number that somebody can call one of you guys at? Or?
Oh, absolutely. My phone number is 754-2264, and they can also contact me through Facebook if that's easier, whichever works best.
And what about you?
Mine's, my phone number is 673-2681. I can be reached on Facebook, or email is nicole.matten@gmail.com.
Okay, final words.
Research, educate, find out.
Spread the word, and thank you very much for letting us tell everybody about apraxia.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Can you say thank you?
And thank you. And thank you.
Say thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And thank you to the viewers for tuning in to another segment of the Northeast Kingdom Voice.